back, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting biology video. Our focus today is going to be on the process of photosynthesis. That is the process on how plants make their energy, more particularly how they turn sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide into glucose and oxygen. Now, as you're aware, plants have to have sunlight in order to be able to make energy. Without it, they shrivel up and die. It's not a very good thing. But humans, animals, those types of organisms eat other things to obtain their energy. So what we're primarily going to be focusing on right now are plants. There are a couple of photosynthetic, I would call them other organisms that are out there, but this primarily focuses on plants. So hopefully by the end of this video you can tell me the difference between how plants and animals obtain food to make energy, which is essentially what I just told you. Describe the reactants and products of the photosynthesis through a chemical equation. Yes, you'll need to know the reactants and products of this chemical equation. And you should also be able to evaluate light and dark reactions of photosynthesis. So we can take photosynthesis and break it down into two specific types of reactions. One that's called the light reaction or light dependent reaction, and then another one that's called the dark reaction or the light independent reaction. You can probably guess which one involves light, hopefully. We got quite a few different vocab terms here: photosynthesis, chlorophyll, thylakoids, light-dependent reactions, light-independent reactions, photosystem, electron transport chain, and something called ATP synthase. So let's talk a little bit about the process of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, in a very straightforward way, photo means light, and to synthesize means to make something. So the word photosynthesis literally means to make something out of light. And it is the process in which sunlight is converted to sugars inside of a plant. So this is very important because this is how the plant actually obtains the food it needs in order to be able to generate energy in the form of ATP. Now, what absorbs that sunlight is a green pigment that is known as chlorophyll. It absorbs light of all colors except for green. The reason it doesn't absorb green is because it reflects it, which is why you see the color green when you look at plants. So if you take a look here, you primarily have the reactants and products of photosynthesis in that picture. Sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water go in. Oxygen comes back out, and then the plant is able to make glucose as a carbohydrate. We all know oses. We all know that oses are sugars. So that carbohydrate is then stored inside of the plant and can be used to make ATP. So if we dive in a little bit deeper, again, we get our chemical equation here, that light plus water plus carbon dioxide yield oxygen and glucose as your products. Now, if you take a look at the equation down here below, light is not included in the reactant part here, the part to the left. It really should be. Sometimes you'll see light as actually something that's over the arrow, but please keep in mind that light, carbon dioxide, and water produce glucose and oxygen. That is something very important and something you're definitely going to need to know moving forward. So let's talk a little bit more about the organelle in which photosynthesis takes place, and that is known as the chloroplast. The chloroplast is where the chlorophyll is stored, so that's why you see it being green in the picture. And if you've ever looked at plant cells underneath a microscope, you might have actually seen some of these chloroplasts inside of the plant cell. The thylakoids actually contain the chlorophyll, and you see here they look like little discs, and they're stacked together in what's called a granum. And the stroma on the outside of the thylakoid is the membrane that surrounds them. So this is a very important organelle as it does absorb the light, and most of the process of photosynthesis takes place inside of this organelle. So this is really complicated here. So I'm going to try to break this down to you as simple as possible. If you're looking for a complex explanation, you're probably not going to find it here, introductory biology course. So keep in mind the light-dependent reaction, step one. Light occurs in the thylakoids. The light breaks down water into oxygen, and that is released to the environment. And hydrogen is actually utilized to transform NADP, which is a hydrogen-carrying molecule, into NADPH. Okay, now that's going to be very important. That molecule is going to carry some hydrogen and utilize it a little bit later. Now, along with this, we create a bunch of high energy electrons, which are then used to actually generate some ATP. So the whole goal of the light-dependent reaction is for light to actually break down water into hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygen is released to the environment, and then the hydrogen is actually going to be used later. Now, when this process happens, this generates a lot of high-energy electrons, which are used to then generate ATP. So what we do here is we create energy, some oxygen, and some hydrogen. The oxygen is released, and the hydrogen and the energy are going to be used in the dark reactions. So the light-independent reactions and the dark reactions occur actually in the stroma. They occur outside of the thylakoid. Now, carbon dioxide is then broken down with ATP. So we use that ATP to break down the carbon dioxide. And the energized electrons and the hydrogen that's carried over from the NADPH is combined with carbon and oxygen to form glucose. Now, again, this is a very simplistic model here. But we're taking the carbon dioxide as one of our reactants. The energy in the form of ATP. High energy electrons and NADPH. We're using the hydrogen, the carbon, and the oxygen, and we're rearranging all of those to form a glucose molecule. So this is the process in which sugar is actually made through photosynthesis. So again, just a quick little overview of this entire process if we look at it from the big picture. You're looking inside of the chloroplast here. So the light reactions occur inside of the thylakoid. The light and the water react, and the water is broken down. Oxygen is released. We create a bunch of high energy electrons that generate ATP, and then that hydrogen is going to be shipped over to the dark reaction using a molecule called NADP. In the dark reaction, the carbon dioxide, the hydrogen from the NADPH, and the ATP are used to chemically rearrange the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen to generate glucose. That essentially is the simplistic form of this process. So hopefully you're able to differentiate between light and dark reactions, and again, we'll go through this quite a bit as a class. One thing that's nice to look at in this picture is if you look at the top, the three things that are on the top of the chloroplast here, light, water, and carbon dioxide. Those are your three reactants to the equation. Also on the bottom, we have oxygen being released as well as sugar being produced. Those are our two products from this chemical reaction. So again, the whole goal here for you to understand is that carbon dioxide, water, and light are used to make oxygen and glucose through the process of photosynthesis. There are two steps to this process, our light reactions and our dark reactions. The first step makes ATP and hydrogen, which is transported utilizing NADPH. The second step uses carbon dioxide, hydrogen, and ATP to generate glucose. So again, hopefully you understand the objectives of this video. We're talking a lot about photosynthesis. We talked a lot about how plants are going to make their energy. What we're going to look at next is how do organisms break down the glucose that's found inside of their bodies to generate the energy-carrying molecule of the cell, ATP. Hope you have a great day, guys, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.